Today on the Pro-Life Podcast, the information they don't want you to have. Check out the disclaimer below. We're going to talk about that. And Texas is suing the Biden administration again. So grab your coffee, pull up a chair. Let's get started. Happy Tuesday, friends. Welcome to the Pro-Life Podcast. Grab your coffee, pull up your chair, join us if you will. I'll introduce my awesome co-cast friends here. Kim Schwartz, Media Communications Director. Veronica?
Who are you?
What is your title now?
Do you even go here?
What is your title now?
I retired from the education director role, and I'm so proud of Rachel Bush for taking that on.
Right.
And now I am an education associate, and I hang out and do podcast stuff and weird little projects here and there.
Sorry, I didn't recognize you with your new tattoo.
Yes. Audio listeners.
She went to a wild party over the weekend and got a tattoo, apparently.
It's a mermaid. It'll be gone next week, I promise.
It's a temporary tattoo from a kid's
very
party.
hard.
Don't write us with bad comments or anything.
It's very hard to scrub off.
That
so
took
I didn't want to be all red.
Took a whole 30 seconds to get off track.
Veronica's always been our wild child.
Yes,
this
it's true.
This is true.
She just comes in with new ink.
Yes, I'm so wild. My Ariel birthday tattoo.
And Emily Cook, our general counsel. Let's put this back on track, please. Sorry, it's my fault we derailed, so I don't know why I'm talking about. So, if you're watching this on YouTube, you may notice a little message below this video now. YouTube, my generic tablet device, is keep taking a nap here.
Sad.
But YouTube has started dropping fun little context notes under some of our videos and other pro-life videos about abortion health information. National Library of Medicine, yada yada, description of abortion procedure in very sterile generic terms.
Yeah. You remember like the COVID disclaimers that they put on everything? Now we're going to get 2 disclaimers because I said COVID.
Oh, no.
So, okay, I don't know. What other words we need to say here to just get all of them?
Virus.
Misinformation. I'm not going to say the election one because that might actually get us deplatformed.
Vaccine.
Yes.
All those meta tags.
Anyways, we're just going real all over the place today. So the disclaimers that they used to put and still put on anything COVID related about vaccines are safe and effective. And here's more information about the virus. Now they're doing that with abortion. And they're saying that, oh, well, we're just going to put this disclaimer that links to the government website that says, like, abortion is a personal decision and you should talk to your health provider about what the procedures are and if this is right for you. And they're doing that with every single...
They're so obsessed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you know, it's funny. When y'all first mentioned that we were getting tagged with these disclaimers, I actually felt kind of honored. I was like, we leveled up.
Yeah.
We're as bad as the anti-vax people.
I guess so.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
Yeah. These days, it's kind of just like you're either the left, there's the far left, and then everybody else. And so now we're deeper.
I'm not going to lie. I kind of low-key went looking for other people's videos to see who else got tagged. Like, oh, did they get tagged too? No! Yes! It's just us! Awesome!
They hate us a little extra because of the heartbeat bill.
It seems to be the case. They hate us a little extra.
Yeah. They do. So to fight back, make sure that you actually like this video and leave a comment to help us in the algorithm, because you know they're going to try to like suppress all the pro-life content even more than what they were already doing. And so whenever you actually share this video yourself, then it's like, YouTube getting around the censors and everything.
Yeah.
Speaking of beating the algorithm, I talked to a guy the other day whose wife comments so much on Planned Parenthood's post on Facebook, like with, you know, give me a location, I'll find you resources in your area, like trying to find them pregnancy centers.
Oh, wow.
She got a top fan badge. She commented and reacted to their stuff so much.
She's a pro-life top fan.
That the algorithm broke, so she's a top fan of Planned Parenthood. And so then it just gives her more street cred on those posts. It's really funny.
Is awesome.
That's doing the Lord's work right there.
It's like a professional troll.
Yes.
I love it.
Good.
I want to be a professional good troll.
Yep. Yep.
That's amazing.
Well, you noticed something on Planned Parenthood's website too, and I'd like to notice, you know, we talked about whenever Roe was overturned, and how miscarriage and abortion are not the same thing, but the media is just losing their minds and saying abortion bans are going to stop miscarriage treatment and women are going to die and all these things. Yeah. And Planned Parenthood's own website said ectopic pregnancy treatment is not the same as abortion. And, we're talking about how miscarriage treatment is not the same as abortion. And pro-lifers were pointing to Planned Parenthood's own website to prove this point that not even Planned Parenthood says these are the same.
Yeah.
However, everything changed
when
the Fire Nation
just
attacked.
a couple weeks ago. I know. Yeah. Speaking of disclaimers and misinformation, all this stuff, I took a screenshot of Planned Parenthood's website weeks ago. I think it was June 27th. I'll go look at my timestamps because I actually anticipated this would happen. And
that's 3 days after the Dobbs decision came down.
Yeah. I went to their website to see what do they say, what are they saying lately about ectopic pregnancy? Because I always, whenever pro-lifers ask me, how do I argue well with my friend who is pro-choice about ectopic pregnancy? I just say, go to Planned Parenthood's website. Who better to go to than someone who you disagree with but is still giving out useful medical information, because then they're not going to view you as biased. So I went to that website too and screenshotted it. And then, just a few weeks later, they scrubbed that statement that said ectopic pregnancy care is not the same thing as abortion. And they replaced it to say something really vague and squishy, like ectopic pregnancy care is not usually the same thing as what we usually do during an abortion, and blah, blah, blah. It's all very vague, and it doesn't say what they usually do anymore. Like the medication that is necessary to care for a woman with an ectopic pregnancy is methotrexate and or surgery. And so it really kind of like dumbed down those as the primary methods of care. And that's maddening. I guess Planned Parenthood, it's weird to say, I was kind of proud of them in the past for being direct and explicit with what the real care is for ectopic pregnancy. Because as evil as they are, at least they were doing that one little thing correctly.
Right.
And now they've scrubbed it.
It's not even that maybe Planned Parenthood didn't have pure motives for saying that abortion and ectopic pregnancy care aren't the same, because the reality is a lot of people, the majority of people, still have an aversion to abortion and thinking like, oh, even if they don't want to see abortion banned entirely, most of Americans are like, oh, it should be restricted. Like they're not completely okay with it. So I think there's a benefit for Planned Parenthood saying ectopic pregnancy treatment is not the same as abortion, because then it's like, oh, well, I don't want to have an abortion, so should I endanger my life by waiting to get treated for this? So I think that there could be, even if their motives aren't pure, it doesn't matter what their motive was for putting that information on their website. But the fact is, it was there and it was accurate that ectopic pregnancy treatment and abortion are not the same thing. But now they're just showing that they're dedicated to this agenda and this narrative.
Yeah, it's clear what their motive is now. Their motive now is to conflate the issue of abortion with ectopic pregnancy, because that's what the media has been saying. And so it probably would give Planned Parenthood more media attention if they buy into this false agenda. And so it's just ridiculous. It's like, well, there goes all medical accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, what about all the women who... Thankfully, it's rare but common, right? I mean, that's how medical professionals speak. Rare but common. What about the women who are suffering that rare but common issue of an ectopic pregnancy, and now they think that they're going to get in trouble? They think that they're not going to be able to get care because abortion's illegal in Texas. Yeah. People are lying to them. Whereas in reality, all they have to do is go to their doctor and get immediate care. They're never going to be told you can't get this care. No doctor's going to be like, you're going to get in trouble for it. None of that is true. Yeah, and I mean, so these women are going to be in peril because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it goes to show that they the pro-abortion side likes to cast the pro-life side as not caring about women, not caring about children, and not caring about the health of women, when it's the complete opposite. Yep. So you've got this entire faction of the left who they don't care about women. They want to breed fear and confusion into families across America and women across America to reach this agenda that they think that abortion on demand for any reason through all 9 months of pregnancy should be the standard. And guess what? You and I should pay for it. Mm-hmm. They don't care how they get there.
Mm-mm. Yeah. If
So
you're
they're
killing
trying
babies,
to ride on the coattails of an extremely dangerous medical situation that has nothing to do with abortion.
but we're pro women, so you got that going
I know,
for
it's
you.
maddening.
It's so ridiculous. And I think just to labor this point a little bit more,
Let's beat the dead horse.
yes, no. No, but something you said, Emily, is that there are consequences to this narrative that miscarriage and abortion are the same thing, or ectopic pregnancy treatment and abortion are the same thing. The consequences are a woman who actually needs that treatment might not seek it because they think like, oh, well, it's abortion or abortion is banned or something like that, so I can't get this treatment anyways. When that's not true at all, and the responsibility for that, even though the media is the one that's pushing this narrative forward and they're just trying to cram it down everyone's throat, somehow that's our fault for being responsible for something that the law doesn't say. I'm not quite sure how that one works.
Right.
But the responsibility is on the media. If they just stop talking and pushing that narrative and they do the responsible thing of saying, no, these are not the same, then we wouldn't have that consequence. We wouldn't have that problem. But
Or-
it doesn't benefit them.
Medical associations can come out and use all of their money that they usually use to fund legislators and campaigns and public advocacies organization and efforts, and come out and educate their physicians and their hospitals of like what the law is. They got lawyers. All the hospitals, believe me, hospitals have lawyers. And
Oh, really?
just I mean that is their responsibility, but especially the American Medical Association
It's their
is
job to train
buying
doctors.
into this. They're proliferating this misconception, and it is. I mean, we've seen this. It's hard to trust. The guys who are and gals who are supposed to be in the white coats telling you what
The irony here that they're running around spreading actual fake news while we have disclaimers on our videos, basically calling us fake news.
Yep.
Interesting.
We live in backwards town.
It's bizarre world, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's very
That's
bizarre
the
world.
theme now.
Yep.
Bizarre
Yep.
world.
So you wanted to talk about also the Biden administration's recent shenanigans with this EMTALA thing. Explain this. I don't understand this.
Okay, so have you ever gone to an emergency room or decided you didn't want to go to an emergency room because everyone's there with a sniffle? Someone might be having a heart attack, but someone's... Okay,
Yeah.
so the reason why emergency rooms, you might hear, they are the de facto primary care physicians, and because there's a federal law that requires hospital emergency rooms as a condition of Medicare Medicaid participation to anyone who presents to an ER to screen. So everyone, that's why you get people with the sniffles, the
Right.
ER, okay, to screen. And then if they have a life-threatening condition, it is on the responsibility of that hospital to stabilize them to the best of that if the hospital has the capabilities to stabilize that person, or to transfer them to another facility who can provide the stabilizing treatment if the benefits of transferring the person don't outweigh the costs.
Okay.
So this was passed in like the 90s, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Ronald
It's been
Reagan
going on for a long
signed it.
time.
Following
So,
this.
like, this is a super pro-life law. Ronald Reagan signed it. Like, if you go into an emergency room and you need to be stabilized, like, they have to make sure that you are still alive at some point to the best of their ability.
Yeah, 2 major points. This is to ensure that there is an emergency care if you can't pay.
Right.
So you didn't. This was in response to hospital emergency departments turning away patients who had life-threatening conditions because they couldn't pay. And then also, I should put another, comes into play here, it's a life-threatening condition or who are in labor. Okay, so if you come to an emergency room and you're in labor, not a life-threatening condition, but you're in labor, they've got to admit you
We need to do something about this relatively quickly.
Pretty pro-life.
Yeah,
Okay,
and deliver
yes.
the child and
This-
stabilize
okay, we
mom.
make sense so far.
Yes. All right. So that's the framework. Now, across the country, in the pro-life laws that are now in effect or fixing to come into effect with trigger laws across the country, they have exceptions for when mother's life is in danger. We've talked about this on the podcast where, the law does allow for abortions to not be elective abortions if the mother's life is in physical health is actually in jeopardy, and those definitions vary across state lines. We've talked about on the podcast how usually that is actually the medical answer to that is never abortion. Okay,
Right. But if it were, they're legally allowed
Correct.
to perform an abortion.
Correct.
It's just oddly never necessary.
Yes.
Correct. So an agency of the federal government, the Agency of Health and Human Services, came down with a letter, a guidance letter, and basically told all of the emergency room departments that in order to comply with EMTALA, that it was the responsibility of the physicians and hospitals to kind of disavow those state exceptions, and that any kind of treatment for a pregnant woman, or I'm sorry, they call them pregnant people, because I forgot, Brent, you can get pregnant now.
The uterus owners.
Sorry, I digress. That they can basically said throw those state definitions out the window. We have our own definition under EMTALA that gives wide discretion to what you deem to be the mother's health. It expands that definition and says federal law trumps state law.
And when did this happen?
Couple weeks
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. So there's a lot of problems with that. First of all, they don't have the authority to do that. EMTALA is a statute, and so they're trying to, which is enacted by Congress, and the agency is trying to write new regulations into it, expand definitions, when really to do that it would need to be Congress. And then additionally, there are various other places in EMTALA itself and in other neighboring kind of healthcare provisions that don't allow for the federal funding of abortions, that say you cannot discriminate. So the HHS is trying to say, hey, if you don't do this and we get wind of it, the hospitals and the physicians can be kicked out of Medicare and Medicaid. So it's very personal. But there's also federal laws that say EMTALA cannot be used to discriminate against people, physicians or hospitals who decline to provide abortions to patients.
Wow.
So, it
Sounds like a lawsuit
That's
waiting to happen.
right.
Well, it is a lawsuit now, so that's a great
Okay,
setup,
good.
Veronica. Last week, the Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a civil action in Lubbock County, challenging the Secretary of HHS's guidance letter and memo. So,
Texas
Wasn't there
sued
also
Biden.
recently a Supreme Court case about how these government agencies don't get to rewrite rules that weren't
Yeah.
passed by Congress? I mean, right before
Yes.
Dobbs?
yes, that is very
So, I mean,
was-
what do they think's going to happen? It sounds like the Supreme
Look.
Court would just be like, nope.
Look,
Yeah, basically.
we experienced this with the Heartbeat Act. When the Heartbeat Law got into effect and we were sued, TXRTL was sued 14 times. I really think
You
the
just love
motives,
saying that.
I mean, I really think the motives of all of this is to cause confusion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're setting up this narrative nationwide of just like what we were talking about. Can we do this? Can we do that? I mean, if they had just said, hey, from day one, like the laws say, ectopic pregnancies, treatment for an ectopic pregnancy is not an elective abortion. A miscarriage treatment is not an abortion. Okay, we wouldn't be here.
That's true.
So I think it's a very more sinister, organized effort to confuse the American public, to confuse lawmakers, attorneys, and healthcare practitioners, to make this fake demand, this fake cry for, we got to kill unborn children now.
Yeah.
It goes right back, it goes right back to the concept of if someone believes that you have authority over them, then now
Correct.
you do. Even if you never did before, all you have to do is convince someone that you have authority over them, and now you have authority over them. And it reminds you when, wow.
So
this is
they're
gonna be a
basically
hot
sitting there
take.
trying to be a Karen going, do you know who I am?
Right.
Yes, like, do you know I'm in charge of you and all your thoughts and decisions? And by the way, I'm going to shut down the economy, so you have to do what I say, and you can't go to work anymore. And now you have to believe me that I'm in charge of who gets to define, what an abortion is. It's like, what?
Yeah.
These people are nuts. Aren't there a few books about this? About what's
Like
that book?
1984.
1984 and Animal Farm and a few other really good ones that were like required reading in high school.
They were supposed to be fiction, but here we are.
Could rewrite it to be 2024. That's
Yeah.
what life's gonna be like.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Oh,
it's
predicting the future.
sickening because all the headlines are saying like Texas sues because they don't want to provide abortions when the life of the mother is at stake. And that's not the situation
even
at all.
the case.
All of our laws say that if an abortion is necessary to save the physical life of a mother, that an abortion is permitted in those situations, even though they are not usually
Or serious
usually the
impairment of a major bodily limb or organ, bodily
Yeah.
function. So that's the whole point in Attorney General Paxton's lawsuit is feds stay out of this.
Yeah.
You have no authority here to do this. We're handling this.
Mhm.
And now you're just going to scare all of our hospitals. So it opens up a loophole to come in and say, oh, it's going to turn our emergency room departments into de facto abortion clinics.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they would be afraid. They would be afraid. This is an attempt to coerce and intimidate ER physicians into anyone who comes and saying they're pregnant and having a health problem, that, well, I better provide the abortion for them, whether or not they're actually in jeopardy, because if not, and they file a complaint, EMTALA is a complaint driven process, and they file a complaint, then I have put my hospital and myself at risk from participation in Medicare and Medicaid, which is, it's a lot of money.
funding.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's when y'all were saying off camera a minute ago that basically they're holding Medicare and Medicaid money hostage.
The threat of it, yes.
Yeah,
Correct.
and that is only going to hurt impoverished people.
Yeah.
So that doesn't hurt someone who already has insurance is going to be fine. It's going to hurt impoverished people.
But Joe Biden cares about the poor, apparently, unless it
That's what
comes
they say.
to abortion. Who knows at that point? One more thing on this, though, is that whenever I was reading the lawsuit of Texas against the Biden administration here, is that they point out that the law, EMTALA, does not, it specifically says that nothing in this law should be construed to prescribe a specific medical treatment. Like, we're not saying under this law, you have to provide a ventilator or you have to provide this treatment. We just
Correct.
say you have to stabilize, you have to take care of the patient broadly. And the opposite is happening here, is that if a pregnant woman comes in, you have to be able to provide an abortion. And that's not, like, the law specifically says that they can't do that. And there's so many other ways that if a woman's life is in danger, they're not going to provide an abortion. They're going to do something else that would still result in the mother's life being saved. It's the same end result, but they're like, no, we have to have abortion be the answer, like, no matter what.
Right, and that goes directly against the Conscious Protections Acts for healthcare professionals, and it goes against the religious liberty rights of the hospitals involved. I mean, this is very unconstitutional.
Yeah.
So
It's like
what
they
think
packed in every bad idea that they could possibly think of into one memo. And so Texas, luckily, was like,
I shouldn't
no,
laugh,
we're
but
not doing
nothing
that.
surprises me anymore. It's all just a clown world comedy show.
And I
Yeah.
gave Joe Biden the benefit of the doubt in that Nothing Burger episode. I was like, wow, they've actually discovered the Constitution and that there are limits to the executive branch. And then the very next week, they're like, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to put all of our unconstitutional ideas together into one instead of spreading them out like they normally do. I take it back.
I was going to say something really snarky, but I won't. We don't have time for that. We have other information we need to share with you right now, so we're going to take a break and see you in a few minutes.
Save the date for Boots on the Ground. It's an awesome pro-life conference coming up January 28th and 29th. Come to Austin, Texas with us to march to the Capitol to celebrate the end of Roe v. Wade, to commemorate Roe v. Wade, and to learn from expert pro-life speakers on how to keep Texas pro-life forever. Come to Austin with us and hear from Ryan Baumberger, our keynote speaker who shares his personal story, and so much more. Book your tickets today, bootsonthegroundtx.com. See you in January.
The Supreme Court just overturned Roe v. Wade. This is a historic moment. Now we have a bold, groundbreaking agenda for the next steps. First, we have to enforce our laws and make sure liberal district attorneys don't give abortionists a free pass. Second, we need to expand the life-saving Alternatives to Abortion program. And third, we need to save hospital patients. Do you believe in this vision? Go to texasrighttolife.com/stand to donate now and save lives.
Welcome back, Pro-Life family. So we left off, we were talking about this EMTALA thing and how Texas has sued the federal government. I mean, that's kind of what we do here. And a certain attorney general had some commentary about us doing that.
It's true.
Kim, did you want to?
Yes. So this is The Empire Strikes Back, the new episode here. And so the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, you might remember him from earlier in the Obama administration, where he was nominated for the Supreme Court. And thankfully his nomination was stalled so long that he never got to be on the Supreme Court.
Gee darn.
That's kind of why we're here now, actually. So thank you, everyone, to the Senate Republicans there. Anyway, so Merrick Garland, he's now the U.S. Attorney General and basically like top lawyer of the Biden administration here. And someone asked him last week about the Texas lawsuit over this memo with the EMTALA Life of the Mother guidelines. And he said, yeah, we're going to file a motion to dismiss that lawsuit. And then he said, we're thinking about suing states to force them to provide abortions in those situations. So this memo wasn't enough. They had to go and add the point of like, oh, maybe we're going to countersue. And if you may remember, that has not worked out well historically.
No.
I'm old enough to remember a year ago when they tried the exact same thing and it didn't work. Merrick Garland, once again last year with the Texas Heartbeat Act, sued the state of Texas, trying to force Texas to provide abortions. And they handpicked a judge in Austin that would give him a favorable ruling. And that poor judge, he had his about a day and a half of glory where he reversed a little bit, blocked the Texas Heartbeat Act for about a day and a half, and then the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals came in and said, no, this was a terrible ruling. Like, your lawsuit is bogus, and this ruling from the Obama judge is bogus. And then it went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court again was like, no, this was a terrible idea. But again, we're just putting all of our bad ideas together in one. So they're going to try it again. You can imagine how that might work out.
Yikes.
Yeah. But this ultimately, the EMTALA law that we talked about earlier, and then hopefully not lawsuits to come after that, but possibly, it's all an attack on pro-life doctors ultimately, because they're trying to force them to provide abortions, even if the doctor isn't like, yeah, I'm pro-life. 9 out of 10 OB-GYNs won't provide an abortion. And so this is an attack on medicine overall and trying to force them into one corner when that's not necessary and it's not ethical.
Yeah. Speaking of pro-life doctors, I have several friends who are pro-life doctors, and one of them the other day, she's an OB-GYN. She sent me a statement made by ABOG, the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology. This was just a couple weeks ago, July 7th. They issued a statement on disinformation, and it was all about, people shouldn't create false narratives about abortion. They should provide accurate information.
I'm with you so far.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to read the last paragraph because it's really creepy. It says, ABOG will review reports of dissemination of misinformation and disinformation about ... reproductive health care, contraception, abortion, and other OB-GYN practices. Eligibility to gain or maintain ABOG certification may be lost if ABOG determines that diplomats do not meet the standards they have agreed to meet and that the public deserves and expects. So basically, if you say that you're pro-life and if you argue that ectopic pregnancy is not an abortion and you're not meeting this leftist agenda, that they can just take away your certification. And so a lot of pro-life doctors are worried. I mean, they're being bullied right now, and who are these people who think that they can just be in charge of thoughts and speech? And it says, like, people have the right to free speech, but disinformation is really, a problem and all that stuff. So it's terrible. My friend was like, I'm afraid I'm going to have to be a closet pro-life OB-GYN, and I hope that we'll never reach that day. I hope that we can nip this in the bud quickly.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. They're bullying people.
Out of the closet pro-life lawyers.
It's true.
Such things too.
Yeah.
So.
Ooh, and I was maligned in the Houston Chronicle this weekend.
Ooh,
That did happen.
I had several people send it to me. They're like, "Hey, they don't like you."
Oh, no.
I was like, "That's great."
Yeah. What'd they say? I missed it.
Oh, it was we're too far right, and it was actually talking about how an organization with whom I was speaking to, addressing that they were kicked out of a church for being too conservative and too pro-life, and it's great. So
Yeah, but I think ultimately this is a culture thing with, like, how are we going to defeat all of these people who are really high up in these institutions that are threatening to decertify pro-life OB-GYNs? And I think it's only a matter of time until, they start to try to disbar pro-life lawyers because you're spreading disinformation or whatever. And with the YouTube disclaimer and everything, like, these are people up in high institutions that appear to have a lot of power, but just like you said, it's, you know, if you actually believe that they have power over you, you only get to, they can only go as far as what you allow.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't be a sheep.
Gotta be brave.
Stand up for your rights.
Cool. Well, we also want to react to a video shared in a chat recently around here. Some of us have seen it, some of us haven't. We did this last week. It was kind of fun, so we want to do that again.
This one's a positive
This
video.
one is positive. I want to end on a positive note. We've talked a lot of doom and gloom and disinformation and ministries of truth and such things. So let's let's end on a little more fun note, maybe. Let's see what we have here.
When a woman tells you she is having a baby, there is only one correct response, and that is congratulations. Let's try it. Woman says she's having a baby. You say, in this economy? No. Anyone else? Aren't you already busy enough? No. Just try it. Contraception didn't work? I give up. I hope you all get injured at a gender reveal.
I like the injured at a gender reveal.
I hope you all get injured.
Yeah, I mean,
gender reveal.
That's what it just goes to show that society is taking away the joy and blessing that pregnancy and childbearing and having children are. And
that's so funny. I love Jen Fulwiler.
I'm a huge fan.
I've never
She's
seen her
always
before.
sending me videos. She's a very conservative and very pro-life comedian, and she's a riot. I love that one.
Fun. That was fun. Yeah, she's gonna get a follow now. I need to add her to my Insta's forever scrolling.
Yeah, she's had 6 babies in 8 years. So
wow,
and
she
well
looks
done.
great.
Absolutely. She is one of my favorite people to follow on social media, not only because, you know, she's had 6 kids in 8 years, but also she grew up atheist and converted to Christianity with the birth of her first son. And that whole story, she tells it 1,000 times better than I can. But basically, whenever her son was born, she was like, okay, well, if I really believe in atheism, what does that say about my son? I'm holding my son here, and I have to be honest with myself and say, okay, you're a little like collection of dust and you'll return to nothing and you're just some kind of like worthless pile of atoms. And she's like, I don't believe that at all. Like, I know that the love that I have for my son is real and comes from some kind of external being that is eternal and that, you know, I share in that love with my son here.
That's cool.
And so that started her journey into the conversion to Christianity. Now she's a really amazing advocate for the idea that you do not have to give up your life, give up your goals, give up your dreams in order to have babies. Like, it's not just like, oh, I had a baby and now I'm going to go be shunned from society because God forbid, like, someone hears a baby crying and it just disturbs my little ears. Like, that would be terrible. So she's really big into the idea that we should treat all life as being welcoming. You know, we need to be aware of this.
Yeah, that's legit.
Yeah. And I think even pro-life people too, like whenever, I think that sometimes whenever somebody who is in an unexpected pregnancy or like, you know, like, okay, maybe this wasn't in the best of circumstances, that somebody tells you I'm pregnant, they're like, what do I say to that? Congratulations. That's all you need.
Congratulations is always the answer.
Yes. Other acceptable answers.
Followed up with, how are you feeling? Can I buy you a hamburger? Do you need any help?
Right.
Just start
I'm
with
so happy for
congratulations.
you. This
Yes.
is exciting. You know, all that kind of stuff.
Those are the only answers that you need.
Love
Nothing
it.
else.
It's awesome.
Fun stuff, you guys. So, yeah. Like and share this video while you still can before the algorithm apparently crushes us into oblivion or whatever. This is how we're going to change the world, change hearts and minds, save some lives. Pro-Life family, we love you. We will see you next week.